Greetings, everyone. Jonathan Bailey here, and I am today. By the way, yeah, you know. Today I'm doing my favorite South by Southwest surprise, and that sounds like a very unusual thing to talk about because everyone else is doing the good and the bad of South by. That's all going to be overdone. I'll probably do something about my like a little mini lessons thing on South by maybe tomorrow, but I wanted to think about the moments that I'm really going to remember from South by like 10, 20 years down the road, things I'm never going to forget. And there are plenty of them. But one moment instantly stood out just because it was so surprising and it caught me well off guard. Uh, Myself, Crystal, and Patrick had gone to Esther's Follies. It's a comedy club right near the convention center. South by Southwest itself was holding a series of comedy shows there over the course of the various events. And that night, they were actually having the Upright Citizens Brigade do both an improv show and then a regular stand-up show. And we were going to go to the improv show, but dinner ran long and things happened, and we didn't end up making it. We ended up getting there just as the show started. So we chilled. Esther's Folly has a really cool lounge. We hung out there for a little while, really had a good time. As that show let out, we went in. And long story short, it was basically Patrick and I both recognized a few names on the posters. He recognized more than I did. He's actually much more attuned to this than I am. He recognized some people like Funny or Die and so forth. Eliza Skinner was there and a few others. So it was a really good lineup, but not what you would say like big name, huge comedians that have played arena shows and whatnot. Mostly internet famous and local comics. And is internet famous a thing? But anyways, so we went to the show and we started going through it all. And it was a great show, just right off the bat there. It was a very solid comedy show. One of the things I hate about a lot of these, hey, let's get a bunch of comics together and have a show, is that oftentimes it tends to be a little homogenous. They tend to get the same types of comedians over and over and over again. It gets a little, a little boring after a while. They had a pretty good mix. They had male and female comedians, had different styles of comedy, kind of ranging from that more traditional, modern, observational humor to the Andy Kaufman-esque awkward comedy. Good mix of comedy, good mix of comedians. And everyone there, by the way, was at least a little bit funny. I mean, there were some comics I liked better than others, but everyone had a few moments like, okay, that was pretty good. But we get toward the end, they're running out of comics. And the MC says, and your next comedian is Ron White. And you have to understand, Ron White's a comic I followed. I learned about him like most people on the Blue Collar Comedy Tour. I thought he was the best thing on there. The only thing really worth following and watching. I'm still a bit hurt that Larry the Cable Guy is the one that's considered the breakout hit from that whole series of shows. But I'm like, well, Ron White, what's the joke? What's the punchline? There's a way to there's got to be an angle on this. But no, indeed, Ron White walks out on stage, takes the mic, and starts telling jokes. And literally, the three of us are third or fourth row back, all the way to one side. So we've got a really good view. And not that there's a bad seat in Esther's Folly because they do stadium seating, but I digress. So he comes out, does a 15-minute set, and most people, myself included, are so surprised he's there, we barely hear any of it. And, it was really amazing when he came out. The crowd went wild. I mean, this crowd had been fairly tame and quiet the whole time, but all of a sudden the applause just got thunderous, same as when he left. Everyone was stunned he was there. And it was a great, great time. But no, apparently his wife was there performing at another South by event, so he just decided to pop in and tell a few jokes. And I know this is fairly common for comedians if they want to try out new material, so they'll just pop into a comedy club and do a short set to a surprised audience and gauge the reaction. That way no one feels ripped off that they paid money to see Ron White and he sucked. But still, it was really awesome to have it happen to me. And it was really cool because Patrick and I were talking about comedians right before. And lo and behold, I mentioned that, Crystal and I had seen Ron White live in Columbia, South Carolina many, many years ago in a comedy club there. Paid a lot of money to do it, by the way. So we were talking about, and Ron White was one of the few comedians that we both hadn't seen. Usually if he'd seen it, I'd seen it. There were a couple exceptions to the rule, but that was a comedian I said he needed to check out when he got some time. There he was. Convenience. South by, bringing convenience to my conversations on comedians. So I think the mysterious appearance and then disappearance of Ron White is going to be one of my favorite surprises, if not my favorite surprise, from South by Southwest 2012. And frankly, that was my favorite thing about having a badge, was going to that show and seeing that. There were a lot of great panels, but just the sheer surprise and the conversation factor of that, I think, really made me rethink my position about not needing to go badgeless next year. Well, on that note, everyone, this is Jonathan Bailey signing off with more blabber about South by tomorrow.